Hello everyone, my name is Riccardo Fasoli and I'm a multimedia producer and VJ based in Italy. This is my first time on the other side of a camera trying to make this kind of content, so I have no clue how this will come out. But hopefully some of you will find it interesting, so bear with me and let's find out. Being my first video, I guess it's fair to introduce a little bit of myself and my background. And it all started when I was 13, which is 12 years ago, and I saw some visuals being projected and I instantly realized that that was what I wanted to do in life. So with a lot of effort and a lot of luck, I was able to make that become my job. I remember I started with Blender, it was version 2.68 at the time, and rather soon I realized how much I love 3D graphics in general. So much so that while I started making VJ loops, I on parallel started trying photorealistic 3D renders, especially interior design and other stuff, and that opened up a lot of other interests. I got into photography, I got into video making, photo manipulation, compositing, etc. All of which led me to open my own company in 2021. For the last few years, many friends and colleagues suggested me to start making contents on YouTube, such as tips and tricks for Resolve, Blender, Photoshop, etc. I never really saw a point though in making a type of content which is already so vastly present on YouTube. A couple months ago though, my dear friend Grigory Vitmov told me that the guys from SMODE, an amazing live compositing software which is the ultimate subject of this video, were seeking somebody to make videos about their workflow integrating SMODE. I thought that was interesting, so we had a nice video call where we discussed how I used it and how I integrated it into my workflow. And for the first time, I saw a point in creating a content, because I thought talking about a whole workflow will be much more useful than sharing tips and tricks. In this video, we'll break down every step of my workflow during the preparation of a gig, starting from the reference photo to the front of house live performance. We'll focus on the integration of Touch Designer TOX files inside of SMODE. So without any further ado, let's jump into it. The example I use for this video comes from our latest Cornea, which is our freestyle, light and visual show. This is the first time I've implemented this workflow including TOX files inside of SMODE. So the use I've made of this integration is mostly cautious, as you'll see. If you're curious to see the whole show, I'll put a link to the recording in the video description. To begin, I load a photo of the stage from the ideal point of view into Blender as a background image and reconstruct the position of the LED wall screen. For those who don't know, the ideal point of view is the point defining the perspective of the 3D contents. Creating and placing the panels is easy if you place the Blender camera where the ideal point is, with the same focal length at which the reference photo was taken. Plus, you generally know the screen dimensions so you don't have to guess. Once they're all nice and placed, I'll export every mesh as a single file to take it into SMODE. Once the screen into SMODE surfaces in the stage section of the software, I'll project the UVs from the camera and assign each panel to a different content map, which will be then streamed out as NDI and loaded into Resolve. Once this is done, the tedious part is over and it's time to move into the creation of the scenes. For the truss scene, I got the structure sketch in Vectorworks Spotlight and optimized in Blender before taking it into SMODE. Where after some tries, I opted for a point light traveling linearly from the front to the back of the structure. The cool thing about SMODE is that every animation has its own player, so you can adjust the speed on the fly during the set.
S come superuomo.
For the S scene, I created the S in Blender and took it into SMODE. Then, in Touch Designer, I made a simple video feedback loop that zooms in for a couple of seconds before fading away when triggered. Taking the TOX into SMODE is a matter of seconds, and you'll find every custom parameter, like the trigger in my case, available right away in SMODE inside a custom section of the file properties. The skull scene originates from a 3D composition I made in Blender based on a model by Fletchtech I found browsing Sketchfab, and the process has been quite straightforward. The tree is animated in SMODE using a position noise. Once I imported the skull, I decided to add a bit of flare twist texture using Touch Designer, where I made some key part of the texture glow. I added the lasers and animated the skull orientation. I'm not particularly happy about how the animation came out, but the gig was in 5 hours and I didn't have much time to spend on it still. The corridor scene is pretty simple. I did a canyon-like mesh in Blender taking care of the UVs and took it straight into SMODE where I added an animated position noise. I used Touch Designer to make a simple texture based on 2 noises. Back in SMODE I animated a light and played with its fall off to make it harsher. Some depth of field and a colorize made the rest of the job. I like to adopt a pretty solid front of house management. I run Resolume on a beefy laptop with an external monitor for the panels in order to leave the main monitor as clean as possible with just the contents and the previews to avoid distractions during the performance. SMODE runs on a dedicated machine and I get its NDI outputs into Resolume through a straight Ethernet connection. Since my first attempts at using it in 2018, SMODE has undeniably come a long way. And with the recent ability of playing Touch Designer TOXes, it became a much more powerful tool. And I'll exploit it as much as possible in every of my future shows. I simply can't wait to start integrating camera feeds into it and dig into audio reactive content. And I figured the next step of this integration is supporting chopped channels out of TOX files, which will unlock another crazy amount of opportunities. And I'm also looking forward to test the abilities of SMODE of handling DMX I/O to further tighten the correlation between lights and visuals inside of our shows. As for this video, I think it's time to wrap it up, but not before thanking everybody watching for bearing with me during this first step of the new journey, and giving a great shout out to the SMODE team for creating a wonderful piece of software. So thanks everybody and see you around.